Okay guys, I'm gonna go vlog style for the remainder of this video. What to say? Yes, I turned 50 today. That's kind of makes me laugh when I hear the sound of that. Usually I'm not so big on my birthday or birthdays in general. It's kind of like business as usual, you know, but yeah, it's nice to get the attention for a couple days, but it's just a day like another. But yeah, if you're lucky enough to live to it, turning 50 happens only once, so it's, I guess it's something. But just hearing the sound of it makes me laugh. You know, if I think back at how my friends and I would look at 50-year-olds when we were kids, you know, they all looked old and they had some clear ailments. And I don't want to, you know, brag or boast, but I just don't feel 50 at all in my energy and in my outlook of life. I feel more like I'm 25, but the ID card says something different. And I guess sometimes it really feels to me like I had more certainties, you know, when I was in my 30s than now. And I guess it's because over time, there's just so much to learn that it never ends. And that feeling of never-ending learning, I guess, is what makes me feel like I'm always at the beginning of my trajectory of life. But yeah, the ID card once again tells a different story. Anyway, I guess reaching this milestone, of course, makes you think about things, evaluate your path, and think back at how things evolved. And so all of this got me thinking, you know, what would I tell my 20-year-old self as a musician who's been in the game for 30 plus years? So if you're a young musician in your 20s, or really just a musician on your path, regardless of age, my hope is that you'll find value in the ramblings of a 50-year-old who's been, like I said, in the game for 30 plus years. All right, so I just got home, so I'll continue here from my little courtyard parking lot. So the first thing I would tell my 20-year-old self would be to spend more time meditating and really evaluating my rapport or relationship with music. In other words, why do I really love music so much? And what do I want from music in my life? How do I see my journey in music? And keep in mind, there's nothing that's right or wrong here, or impossible or possible, as long as it's a picture, a clear picture in your mind. But the clearer the picture in your mind and the more defined that picture, the more efficiently you can then choose your course of action and understand what is required for that path or that journey or that vision that you have in music. Regardless, if you want music in your life, there's no way around it. You have to make room for it. And making room for it means saying no to other things. And so a true test of how strongly and how genuinely you want music in your life is how strong you are in saying no to other things that you might like just as much or close, but that you'd have to say no to make room for music and to get the best out of music and the journey. Now, while I started my journey in music relatively early, I mean in my early teens, but I became a full-time professional after my 30s, or in my early 30s. So essentially, it took me, you know, 15 years of dabbling with it and going from more intense periods, you know, high school bands and things of that nature, to periods in my life where music was not at the top of my priority list or my activity list. I mean, I was doing many things growing up. I had a junior career in tennis. I was pretty decent. And then I went to college. I played NCAA Division I college tennis. And so I would say sports in the first part of my life was a bit higher in the hierarchy of things in respects to music, although I still did kind of practice and went through periods where I would play a lot and then periods where I wouldn't or couldn't. And so luckily for me, I always touched or had occasions to really touch the guitar and be around music and be around musicians. But the decision for me to really make music my life came, like I say, 20 years, 15 years later. I think had I meditated and really thought deeply about what I wanted and why I loved music so much and what I wanted from it, it was clear that I would have chosen music over anything very early on. But somehow A little bit it's, your parents, a little bit it's society, a little bit it's this and that. I didn't have a chance to just say, yes, I'm going to go all into music, although inside I already knew that. So really try to be honest with yourself in terms of, what do I want out of music? How do I see myself in regards to my musical path? Do I just want it as a hobby? Do I want to just get together with some friends occasionally? Do I want to make it a profession, etc.? All of those are going to establish routes that you're going to then have to take based on that vision, based on that idea. That the clearer those ideas are, the easier it'll be for you to decide what to do and when. Okay, number 2 would be, beware of the comparison syndrome. This is something that comes up with a lot of my students and a lot of people in general. It's inevitable. Music is a community and nobody lives in a bubble. We all, especially now with social media, we all have access to see what other musicians are doing, or inevitably that is going to spark some emotions to see where other people are on their path. And of course, some people are going to be way ahead of us. Some people are going to be a lot better than us. And you have to understand that's just normal. I mean, nobody starts their musical journey and they're already Mozart or they're already Django or Charlie Parker. Who was it? Marsalis said, we were all bad before we got good. And so really be careful with the emotions that arise in you when you find yourself observing other people's journeys or other people's musical levels compared to yours. It's natural to compare. It's going to be normal to compare what your skills might be at the moment with others, or your trajectory or your path. But try to transform any feelings of, I would call them insecurity or envy or jealousy or wishing that you were at some other point in your path or in your level compared to someone else. Transform that in inspiration. I remember the very first year I went to Samoa many years ago. It was a shock, to see how good and how many good players were out there. And that's a moment where you just have to make a decision. And are you going to pursue that path to become the best possible musician you can be? Or is it going to be too painful to bear? Unfortunately, I've seen both ends of the spectrum there. I went to Samoa in later years with some students, and a couple people have quit playing basically after going to Samoa, because it was just too much to handle. The reality check and the amount of work that in their mind they needed to do was just too big, or the frustration of seeing how much better in that moment other people were. So it's unfortunate, but you have to understand that comes down to a decision that you can make one way or the other. But so again, beware of those emotions, recognize them, but also learn to use them for the best, for your development, for your growth. And yes, always remember that each of us are on our own individual, unique path. No two paths are ever going to be alike. And each path is going to go through stages of evolution. You have to be bad before you can be good. And you have to accept and go through the phase of being bad in order to get to a place where you can be better than today. And that's just how it is for everyone in any field. So it's very important to recognize those emotions when they arise and learn to deal with them in a constructive, positive manner. Number 3, I'd say for me, is the importance of others. Me personally, I always tended to be quite the introvert and never fully always, even to this day to some extent, enjoyed the communal and the community aspect of music. I mean, sometimes more than others, depending, of course, on who I'm with. But it's something I have to work and remind myself of. So just always remember, music is a community. For good or for bad, we live amongst others. And while you, of course, might not like everyone and not everyone might like you, you want to be aware that people always will have the highest level of respect for you. So always try to put your best foot forward with everyone. Always try to definitely always keep your word. It's the most important thing, I think, of all, to anyone and everyone. When you say something, go ahead and do it. Always try to always be fair and be consistent with everyone. Like I said, it's not about getting along with everyone, because that's not going to happen. But you always have to choose to be your best self, your best version of yourself with everyone, and treat everyone with the respect that you desire in return. Be on time, be professional, be prepared. Occasionally learn to say no. That's okay too. It doesn't always have to be, it's not about being a yes man, but be a stand-up guy. Be a person that other people can rely on. Be of support when possible. Try to always think like, how whatever I do or say or the way I behave, how is that gonna affect my reputation? Word of mouth is huge in music, like in any field, but also in music. So you need to be conscious of how other people are perceiving you. And again, that doesn't mean you have to be a kiss ass or just always say yes, or you know put yourself in situations where you're diminishing yourself for others. No, that's not the point. But be a stand-up person. Be straight. Number 4, I'm going to put TV, cigarettes, drugs and alcohol, and distractions in general in this big one box that you should be aware of and conscious about as early as possible in your life. As I said in the beginning, there's no way around the fact that to get the best out of music, you need to give it your best. And all the things I mentioned before, television, drugs, distractions, alcohol, they all interfere with the amount of energy and the intensity of energy that you can give to music in order to get the best back. Drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, they will diminish your brain power and they will eliminate some of your brain cells. There's just no way around it. So again, when you consider how important is music for you, well, that'll be a good test. If you're truly determined to be the best possible musician you can be, then you really need to evaluate how you deal with those distractions. I remember I was close to my 30s and I moved from Dallas to Chicago, and the movers broke my TV. At the time, I was furious. I mean, I wanted to watch my NBA games and my tennis, and now all of a sudden I had no TV and they were just going to give me some dollars for it. So I started just not having one. And after a few days, and then the days became weeks, and the weeks became months, I still don't have a TV to this day and never want one again. And the benefit that I got from that was immense, is an understatement, in terms of the amount of time I got back to dedicate to music. And of course, don't underestimate the effect on your brain cells that TV has. I went to college close to New Orleans. We were drunk almost every day. Again, if I could change something about my 20s, I would definitely drink less and do a lot of less excess, because at the end of the day, everything adds up. A few years ago, I met Mike Stern and we had a little talk, and he was telling me that he's the only musician or musician of his generation that is still alive. All the guys that he grew up with, all the musicians he grew up with, all passed away already. And he knows, and he thinks it's because of the alcohol and the drugs. Pat Metheny is another musician who doesn't drink and doesn't do any drugs and is only focused on music. Now, I'm not saying we all have to do that, but certainly if you can minimize or be conscious about your interaction with distractions and other things that can interfere, all the better. Again, I'm not saying you have to get rid of TV categorically and never have a drink again in your life. I mean, that's the extreme I took, but it's not an effort for me. It wasn't a sacrifice at all. But understand what influence and how those things affect not only your overall skills and abilities, but the time that you can dedicate and the energy and the resources that you can dedicate to music. Number 5 goes out to all those who are thinking of starting a band or starting a jam or, any kind of musical project. And one thing I would not do again that I did in my 20s and I made the mistake of doing is to try to get people involved in my project or in a band and then expect them to kind of have the same intensity and desire that I have, that I might have, or that you might have. Get the gigs first, then find the musicians, and you'll see that the bands and the projects will happen. Or if you're trying to set up your jam, go ahead and be proactive about finding a space or finding the time. And when you can create something good, then people will jump on. You got to remember, it's physiological. Nobody just does something because they like you or because you're nice or anything like that. There has to be some tangible benefit for them. So if you want to start your project and you want certain musicians to be in it, start the project and find the gigs and find the opportunities. Then you'll create the band, and then you'll have a project, and then people will jump on. That's not a knock on anyone. It's just human nature. It's just how things work. You want to be aware of that and don't be discouraged or take it personal when maybe some people flake on you or they're not as dedicated as you might be to a certain project. It's just normal. People have other things and they will go where they perceive the best opportunity. So by knowing that, you want to be the initiator. You want to be the person who is able, and this goes back to the whole concept of the community. You want to be in such good standing with your community and with your environment that you can create the situation first and then involve who you want to involve in second instance. And last but not least, I would say to my 20-year-old self, always keep in mind that music is a marathon, not a sprint. It doesn't matter if you're trying to be a professional, if you're just trying to continue playing, if you just want to improve and have it as a social situation. Music is a long-term endeavor. I like to think of it as a garden. You can't just transform any plot of land into a garden without significant amount of time and effort involved. And you can't really skip some of the phases. It's not like if you water a plant more, then it's going to grow faster. In fact, you might end up killing it. Same thing with music. You need to be aware that certain things happen in their own time, and you have to exercise those abilities such as discipline, perseverance, patience, that might take at times years to really develop. And a crucial aspect in running the marathon as well as possible is surrounding yourself with the best possible people for your situation. It kind of goes back to community, but in more specifically, it means to really be selective of the people you surround yourself with. And again, those are going to change over time. Things evolve, people change, but always try to really think again in terms of where you want to go and what you desire. Who are the people that you can benefit most from and that you can benefit in return most too, so that the journey is not a lonely one and there is support and there is friendship and there is community. All right, guys, I'm going to go celebrate my birthday this week. I couldn't have had a better week. I have a gig every day of the week. And so can't think of a better way to turn 50 than just playing every night with people that I love. I hope you enjoyed the video. Of course, feel free to leave comments, to add your own in the comments below, to add your own thoughts and things that you think are just as important as the ones that I mentioned. Also, as some of you might have seen, I've kind of delved into YouTube a bit more lately. And so I want to make it as useful as possible to everyone. So don't hesitate to let me know if there's things you want me to talk about, subjects to touch upon. I might not be able to answer everyone or all the requests, but definitely let me know what you would like for me to talk about so that the channel can be as useful as possible to you. I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you on the next video soon.